Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably noticing that my video is not there. This is the first episode I'm going to give a shot without recording the video feed. And the reason being, well, two pretty simple reasons. Number one, just want to try it. Podcasts are usually, I guess, traditionally more just audio anyways. So let's give it a shot, right? And let's just see how this works without having a video on me. And the second simple reason is that sometimes having that video on me, I find that I have to be, a little more on stage, kind of a little more animated. Even right now as I'm recording this, I keep looking back at the webcam thinking that I need to talk to it because I've conditioned myself to really just be more of a presenter, right, when I have a camera on me. So just me and the microphone now, and I'm going to give this a shot and just see how it works. Thank you guys for bearing with me on this one. This week's episode, I'm going to do sort of a variety of issues, kind of a potpourri of different things that have been going on in my life personally, as well as just in sync licensing, and to, basically do a little check-in with you guys. I know that for the last 3-4 months, actually, we've been doing a lot of these sort of weekly check-ins with Trevor and Mike, and we've been doing those, to be honest with you guys, mostly for our own sanity, because with the shutdown, the lockdown, with antisocial measures being enforced, it's just so important to kind of reach out and connect with people on a regular basis, and especially those that you sort of work with, you're in an industry with, you can connect with, you can kind of have some common points of interest with. So it's really been a mental health reason, primarily why we were getting together and doing those every week. But, I decided that why not turn these into some really interesting and hopefully valuable podcast episodes for you guys. And we covered, everything from, the coronavirus, what it means for our industry, what we recommend that you do during the shutdown while you're sort of waiting to get back to your life. And we talked about how it's affecting them in terms of their music library owners. So, some parts of their business shut down and slowed down, other parts of their business really sped up. And so just kind of letting you guys know a little bit about what we think in terms of, being in this industry 12 years. And we've weathered quite a few storms. Nothing like this, of course. This is the first time that any of us have gone through something like this. But, we've had ups and downs. We've had dry spells in our careers. We've had changes in the business models, you name it. We've pretty much been through all of it. So, for me, it certainly was very, scary and just uncertain at the beginning of all this. But now, looking back on all of it, I'm really happy and proud of the advice and the episodes and the YouTube videos that I put out during the start of all this just craziness. Because if you remember, and if you were following me back then, I had pretty simple advice. I just said, don't stop working. This might be a huge opportunity for you. In fact, most of you that had day jobs, if you basically got laid off or maybe you were just sent home for a while, this gave you many, many more free hours to actually focus on creating new music, building up a catalog, getting better at your DAW, learning a new program, learning how to mix or master better. Wherever it is that you felt you needed to spend time on, this was a huge basket, a big gift basket landed right in your lap. And a lot of people did not see that. A lot of people saw it as just the end of the world. They just were consumed with fear, with worry, with doubt, with rumors. I mean, it's so funny now to think about all the ridiculous rumors that were flying around social media when this thing first started. And now you look back on it, and sure, there were definitely some scary moments, and but not nearly as scary as what we were all being fed from these just who knows, what kind of sources were out there telling us that some really terrible things were going to come our way. But thankfully, right, we are getting through this. It's working out. There are obviously casualties, and there's certainly loss of income. And I know a lot of you guys actually listening to this podcast right now have lost jobs, lost clients, and I don't want to minimize any of that. So this has really been tough and really challenging. But the point is, we're going to get through it, and we are getting through it, and we're figuring out a way to adapt. We're figuring out a way to push through to get back to normal, to get back to how we were before. And I still am one of those, maybe I'm one of the few, but I don't accept this, like we're going to wear masks the rest of our lives, and we're just going to stay 6 feet apart from everybody until, we're dead. Like, nah, I just, that's not how human beings are meant to be. I don't think we're going to choose that. I'm certainly not going to choose that. I know this is going to be something that it's going to take its toll. It's going to take time to kind of work through and get some better solutions for it. But, if you are in that sort of worrying, you're kind of a little bit in despair, thinking that it's just like, we're living in this nightmare dystopian future thing that, we never, you always, basically read books and watched movies about, and it just seems so unreal that it's happening. It's temporary. I just have to believe that it's just a temporary measure. And the reason why I have to believe that is because everything else on planet Earth and every other experience and every other trouble and endeavor and adventure I've ever gone through personally, all of them, everything has been temporary, right? The lows of my depression, of my anxiety, of my panic attacks, same of yours, all of that stuff, all those really troubling times of your life, they're always temporary, and we always move on. We always find ways to bounce back and go on with our lives. So I don't think there's anything different about what we're experiencing now. Okay. And, I guess on that topic, I can talk about now that coronavirus is sort of, I don't know if I'd call it wrapping up, but I definitely don't feel like the fear that was just engulfing everybody a few months ago. I feel like that big wave of that fear has passed, has subsided. There's definitely still precautions being taken and limitations and all that kind of stuff. But I do think now that, especially when it comes to the sync licensing world, things are opening up. Productions are starting to open up. People are learning how to adapt. And, not a surprise to me at all. Maybe some of you it might be, but music libraries now that the economy is starting to open up a bit are actually more busy than they were pre-coronavirus. That's actually been echoed by many music library owners that I've talked to personally. So this is a result of staying ready, right? This is why I was recommending for those of you that were producers, not just obviously music library owners, but producers and composers, which is the majority of who listens to this, to not take this as an opportunity to just fall asleep and get lazy on yourself and just kind of give in to just getting sucked into the news and worrying about everything that could possibly, go wrong in your life, thanks to coronavirus, but rather spend it diving into your DAW and producing new music, getting reference tracks. If you're a Sync Academy member, obviously there might be some tutorials that you've been meaning to watch and get around to, and here you go. Huge opportunity, huge gift to kind of get brush up on your skills, understand a little bit more about the business aspect of things, understand a little bit more about composing, transitions, starts, ends to your track, mixing and mastering, all that good stuff. And if you did that while you were on lockdown and while you were not working and while, the whole world seemed like it was at a standstill, you're now getting called up for gigs and offers and clients begging for work, and they're begging for high quality licensable music. So that's certainly what's happening with libraries right now. And so that's really encouraging. I knew that would happen. I didn't have any doubts that was going to be, I guess I'm a little bit surprised that it came so quickly. I was expecting maybe towards the end of the year, then things would start to pick up. But no, we're like, middle of the summer, and things are picking up very, very quickly, actually. And so that's really awesome to hear, to see, to know that this industry is alive and well, that those that were working and staying ready and staying busy during those off moments and off months are now being rewarded for that patience and for that perseverance. I keep saying that word wrong, I'm going to correct that. Perseverance during the coronavirus sort of lockdown. So that's always good news, and I hope you guys took that advice, and I know a lot of you guys did, and I do get those emails and comments from those of you that are realizing that you're still getting accepted by libraries right now. You're still getting placements. I just did an interview on my YouTube channel with a Sync Academy member who's recently found out that he's gotten over 100 TV placements, a lot of them with the NBA this year alone, and we're not even to the end of the year, so he's going to have well over 100 by the time this year wraps up. And this is his first year really in sync licensing, so that's awesome. So it's happening. There's just a lot of great stuff going on right now, but you got to be ready. You got to stay ready, and as long as you're doing that, all this really good stuff is definitely in store for you. Pardon me while I take a sip of my tea. I hope you guys don't mind that I never edit anything that I do. I never really edit videos. I don't edit podcasts. I know that they're sometimes rough around the edges, especially when we do our Skype interviews, our Google Chat interviews. Sometimes there might be glitches or people leave and then we have to get back in. And it's laziness. I'll be honest with you guys. It's just laziness. I really don't like to pull things in and export it and then put it back up on. Anyways, the way that I see it is like you get to look a little bit. You get to peer into a little bit of behind the scenes. And I like that when I listen to podcasts or YouTube videos, when like accidents happen or things that are just kind of like, whoops, that wasn't part of the show. As long as they're not happening over and over again, habitually distracting from the actual content of the show. I find it kind of cool. You kind of get to see into the world of somebody else in a way where they maybe didn't plan for that to happen. So anyways, I hope it doesn't bother you guys too much that I don't edit anything. I just turn on my microphone and go. I mean, the only time I'll edit is if I'm just completely brain dead because I didn't get enough sleep, and like halfway through the video I realized that I have no clue what I'm talking about and I have to just restart it. So but even in those situations, I don't edit that. I'll just restart the video and get it right, or I'll just have to wait for another day when my brain works a little bit better. So thank you guys for your patience on that, and I hope it's not too big of a deal. So the next topic I want to just do as a sort of PSA reminder for everybody: always keep your sessions on your external hard drives. And it doesn't matter how long it's been in the past that you composed that track, you need to keep all of your sessions that you've been producing and submitting to music libraries. Reason being is you never know when you're going to get an email from a music library owner, and maybe it's a music library that you don't even work with anymore. Like you might have moved on, as I have, from many music libraries, but they still come back to you later on and say, hey, this client needs something. Can you do something with this track for us? We need to alter it. This is actually just what happened 2 days ago to me. So a library that I worked with for about 3 or 4 years, probably 3 years actually. And it was a track that I composed in 2014. So we're talking 6 years ago. A track that I even forgot that I composed when he sent it to me. And he said, this is your track. We need some adjustments on it. I took a listen and I was like, I don't even recognize it. I did that? Okay. And so I had to dig through my sessions and I found it. I found the actual track that he was talking about. It had been retitled, so it was kind of hard to find in the beginning, but eventually I stumbled across it. And what had happened is there was a game show that wanted my track that was originally maybe a minute and a half. They wanted it to be up to, I think, 2.5 minutes for a particular scene. And they just loved the track. They thought it worked perfectly. So the client had done sort of a really rough edit where they just were, Frankensteining it together and just jamming different parts. And, they did the best they could, but they didn't have the BPM to know how to basically line it up perfectly. And I don't know, they probably weren't using maybe a proper DAW program that makes it a lot easier to do that kind of stuff, like on a grid, right? So whatever, they sent me this a really rough, hacked up kind of edit version. And the library said, hey, can you go edit your original track and make it sound like what they did, because this is exactly what they need. And absolutely, that was my priority that day. Luckily, thankfully, I kept the session. I kept all that stuff from all those years ago, and I kept it in a place that I could find it. That's really important too. All my sessions and all my tracks that I've composed are organized by library that I work with. So when this library reached out to me, I just had to go look for their folder, and there it kind of whittles down a lot of the tracks that I've composed out there. So all I had to do was look through their folder, and sometimes I'll even have like genres. Like if I'm doing multiple genres with one particular library, like I did with this one, it was an EDM track, so I have an EDM folder. So I just have to click on that, and it whittles down my search even more, and then I can go get to exactly where it is. And of course, if you have the exact same track title, all you have to do is go to your Finder and type in the track title, and then you should be able to find it. Unfortunately, that didn't work for me because I had changed the title of my track. Many actually they had changed the title of my track after I had submitted to them. They decided something else was a more appropriate title. So I just wanted to double remind you guys that. I know I've talked about it probably a couple of times, but it's so important, because you don't want those kind of opportunities to slip through the cracks just because you weren't ready. You didn't stay ready, right? And you didn't have a good filing system to be able to go back and get that stuff from years and years ago. And as a general rule, I think double backing everything up is a really good idea. So whatever your external hard drive is that you're working on now, go buy another one if you don't have one, and literally copy and paste everything from that first hard drive to the second one at least once a month. I would say at least once a month. It's just something you do maybe at night. It can take a couple of hours to do. But it's just a great idea to have a couple of backups, because again, one of them fails, and if that was your only way of retrieving your files, I don't know, I wouldn't rely on it. Cloud backup services can obviously be useful. I don't necessarily rely on them as much as I do my own external physical hard drive in my room. Because cloud hard drives, I don't know where it's stored. I don't know the future of the company. I don't know if they're going to get hacked. There's so many unknowns with a cloud thing that it's like, it can be one form of like storing your stuff, but I would not count on it as your primary backup plan, because there are a lot of risks with cloud storage. And plus, a lot of times you're going to be paying probably monthly fees to do that. Whereas when you buy an external hard drive, it's a one-time fee and you're good. As long as you get like a 4 terabyte hard drive, that's probably all you're going to need for your career. I mean, honestly, audio files do not take that much space, so you should be able to be plenty good with a $100 or $200 external hard drive. So anyways, just a little PSA out there. Be mindful of that. One more sip of my tea here. So I'm going to keep this episode fairly short. And the last point that I really want to talk about is that I am deciding I'm going to take a little bit of a different tone when it comes to educating producers and musicians about sync licensing. I think up until this point, I was much more of the cheerleader for this industry and telling people it's so great, it's so awesome, and there's room for you, and it worked for me, and it works for a lot of other just kind of average producers. We're nothing really special, but we just have a vision and a desire to really serve this industry and to provide high quality music to it. And I think I was a lot more sort of I guess preaching the gospel, for lack of a better phrase. And the more that I've been teaching, the more that I'm realizing something that I just didn't think about before, but it really doesn't matter what I say about this industry. I mean, it definitely matters that I expose people to it and that I let you guys know about it. And I think for a lot of you guys listening, probably I was the first voice and the first source of information that even let you know that this was a thing, that it existed, or maybe you knew a little bit about it, but you had no idea that it was really achievable, that you could actually be a producer in it. So I like that that's been my role in the world right now, is just to expose people to this and to let them know it can be done. Like, you can absolutely do it with the right mindset, with the right kind of work ethic, and the right expectations. I think those three things can get you pretty far. But the more that I'm getting into this, the more that I realize that when I'm really just cheerleading it on and really being positive about it, I think sometimes I can attract people or get people excited that are just not the right fit for it. I think they're hearing they might just hear what they want to hear out of what I'm saying. So if I talk about, lucrative sync fees or royalties that do well for you, or syndication, or getting your music, basically broadcasted in front of millions or billions of people, that just perks up people's ears, right? Because that sounds great. Those are all things that people want. And so while that is a promise of this industry, it is not really the point of being involved in this industry. I think that's what attracts people to it. Obviously, it attracted me to it. For me, it was like, full-time income. But, what can happen is, if that's the only reason why you're interested in it and going forward with it, it's just not really going to work out for you, because it takes so long to get to that point where the royalties and the income is sustaining you. So if you're really in this for the income and maybe for the instant notoriety or the instant placements, you could get lucky. And I know, that member that I just interviewed with 100 placements this year, he's going to do well. And I've interviewed others that have done really well right out the gate, just right place, right time, and also just very hardworking, and had the right mindset and all that good stuff. But I don't want to basically mislead people into thinking that that's coming to you right away. It's not. And I know you guys all know that are listening to this. But I think for me, the change of tone is going to be actually more trying to convince more of you actually to not do sync licensing, which sounds counterintuitive, I know, and it's kind of strange. But what I mean is that I kind of want to scare off the right sort of person. I want to scare off the people that are not ready for the long haul, that don't have the right long-term mindset, that aren't ready to really humble themselves and realize they have a lot to learn, that they have a lot to know in terms of serving the needs of other people and being there to help somebody else's life or project better, how to help other people, basically. And not always looking about what's in it for us and what can we get out of this, but really having more of a sort of a humble service mindset. I want to scare people away who don't have those values, or at least aren't willing to learn, because you can learn those things even if you weren't really taught them, or you don't have them really innately in you. You can learn this stuff. Anybody can learn this stuff. But for example, one of the common excuses that I hear from people is, isn't it a little bit oversaturated? I think there's probably too many people here in sync licensing. Maybe I shouldn't get started. And before I would say, no, I mean, you could make that argument for anything. No, as long as you're willing to jump in with high quality music and continuously show up, you can absolutely carve a niche for yourself. There's no reason to not get involved in this business if you think it's oversaturated. But now I think I'm hearing something different, and maybe what I'm hearing could be an assumption for sure. But what I hear sometimes now when people ask me that question is The question, of course, they actually say is, isn't it too saturated? But what I'm hearing now is, I'm looking for something easy and quick. This sounds like it's going to be hard. Do you think it's going to be too hard for me to get to succeed? Right? Because if you really want to do it, and if you really see the vision and you really believe in yourself, you don't really care about the saturation point. You kind of just know, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to jump into. And I know that no matter what, I have something to offer this industry, and I can find the right partners and the right library for myself to really do well. But when I hear people say it's oversaturated, I'm kind of hearing this other thing going on where they're looking for something that's like, well, is this the easy thing I was looking for? I'm kind of looking for this thing that I can just do a little bit and get a lot of money for it, a lot of exposure. So I don't want too much competition. I don't want it to be too tough. Is this the right fit for me? So that's kind of what I'm hearing. And it might be an unfair judgment, an unfair assumption. But I'm wanting to think that is something that is a common issue for a lot of people that are coming to me and asking me these kinds of questions. So from now on, instead of answering that question how I used to, which would have been, no, it's totally not oversaturated, you should really do it, I'll probably answer with like, yeah, it probably is for you. Like I think if you're feeling that this is not going to be something that you can easily jump in and sort of immediately carve a niche for yourself and succeed right away, it probably is too crowded for you, right? Because there are other producers out there that don't think it's too crowded and are getting started with it, and they don't need me to like even give them the sort of thumbs up that it's great. They know that it's right for them, and they just know, they have a gut feeling that this is something they want to do. So if you're asking, I probably would just agree with them now. I think I'll just let them know, yeah, probably is a little too oversaturated. You probably shouldn't get started. So that's what I'm going to start to do from now on, and change my tone a little bit, because I think it doesn't really matter. Because if you came to me, like, whoever's listening to this podcast, if you came to me and you said, Jesse, I'm thinking about getting involved in sync licensing, and I told you, you know what, that's probably a bad idea, man. I don't think you would make it. You're probably not talented enough, probably not going to work hard enough, and it's just too crowded. Would that stop you? I really don't think it would. I really don't think that most of you guys would. You would, in fact, I think what it would do is give you extra motivation, because I think you would say, screw that Jesse guy. Like, he doesn't know anything from anything. He completely underestimated me. And now I'm on a dead set mission to prove him wrong, and to send him an email in a couple of years when I've got my income and I've got my placements, to show him how wrong that jerk was, right? That's actually what people do when they're ready to go. And when you are determined to do this kind of thing, it really doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what anybody says. If it's in your heart, if it's in your gut, if it's really in your path and you already know that, it doesn't matter what anybody tells you, right? So in some ways, I know that people could be mad at me for saying this kind of stuff, but I know in the long run, those who have ears to hear, those who are actually already dedicated to this industry, they're going to use that as motivation, and it's actually going to be a gift for them. That if I told them, like, yeah, maybe you should just bow out of this business, probably not for you, that's going to be actually one of the best gifts they've ever gotten. And for those that really didn't want to get involved anyways, maybe that was a great way for them to just save time, right? And save their effort to go like, okay, well, I mean, this guy's been doing it for 12 years and I really wasn't that excited about it anyways. And if he's saying it's kind of oversaturated now, then yeah, I'll keep looking. So I just did them a favor too, by just saving them time and energy. So I'm realizing now that it's a little counterintuitive, but when you kind of just think about it and, like, put the logic sort of graph out there, I can't lose with that approach. At least that's how I'm seeing it right now. So we'll see what I feel about in the future. But it's always fascinating, just as an educator and as a person who talks about sync licensing for a living, essentially now, different ways to educate and motivate. It's not always the common. It's not always the obvious way that you think is going to get people really fired up and excited. Sometimes you got to piss people off, and you got to doubt them, and you got to tell them in a way, like, nah, I don't think it's going to work out for you, and just let that be the spark that ignites their motivation moving forward. So with that said, guys, that's the episode this week. Thank you so much for listening, for paying attention, for being, a loyal listener. I know many of you guys listen every single week, and I really do want to appreciate you guys for doing that. This podcast, I think the format is going to go through a little bit of a change probably in the coming weeks and months. I'm probably going to go more to this format, just being me in front of a microphone, just talking. I kind of like it. I mean, just at the end of this first episode, I'm realizing that, I don't know, it allows me to express a different sort of tone, a different kind of voice, a different part of me, that when I'm always worried about, like, well, I'm on camera and this is going to be on YouTube, and, you have a different part of your brain, I think, active when you know that you need to present, right? It's almost like you know that you're on and you're on a stage in a way. So with this, I don't feel like I'm on a stage at all. I just feel like I'm kind of like verbally journaling to you guys. So that's kind of fun. I'm going to give it a shot for a couple more episodes. And of course, I need to know how you guys, like what you think about this format, if you're digging it, if you don't dig it, if you want me to go back to a video, let me know what your thoughts are. Email me, leave a comment below on YouTube, whatever you want to do. And we'll go from there and we'll see what happens in the future. So until then, everybody, have a great, happy, healthy, productive, hopefully well-rested rest of your week. And stay busy, stay productive, keep cranking out high-quality licensable tracks. And I can't wait to chat with you guys again next week here on the podcast. Thank you for listening to the Sync My Music podcast. If you enjoyed the show and want me to do more episodes, all that I ask is that you leave me a review on whatever platform or app that you're listening to. It just takes a few seconds. I'll never charge for this podcast, and I want to keep it 100% ad-free. And your review right now will help me do just that. Thank you so much.